Good evening, my dear friend. As the night settles in and the world grows quiet, I find myself curled up in my favourite armchair, a cup of tea warming my hands. The soft glow of my reading lamp casts a cosy circle around me, and I can't help but feel a sense of anticipation as I prepare to share with you an experience that has left me questioning the very nature of time and memory. I spent yesterday morning helping Mrs. Holloway, an elderly woman who lives at the end of my street, clean out her attic. Well, amidst the dust and forgotten treasures, I came across something that caught my eye. An old, weathered carnival flyer. The colours, though faded, still hinted at the vibrant spectacle it once advertised. The date was smudged, but the location was clear. Meadowbrook Field, just on the outskirts of town. As I held that fragile piece of paper, something stirred within me. A sense of nostalgia, perhaps, or a whisper of adventure. Either way, I found myself drawn to visit the field, curious to see what, if anything, remained of the carnival grounds. The evening was cool for August, a light mist hanging in the air as I made my way to Meadowbrook Field. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. As I approached the field, I heard something that made me pause. The faint sound of music and laughter carried on the breeze. Intrigued, I quickened my pace. As I crested the hill, the mist seemed to part like a curtain, revealing a sight that took my breath away. There, sprawled across the field, was a carnival in full swing. Colourful tents, whirling rides, and strings of twinkling lights created a scene of festive chaos. For a moment, I stood frozen, wondering if I had somehow wandered onto a movie set. But the smells of popcorn and cotton candy, the shouts of excited children, and the warmth of the lights felt all too real. As I stepped into the carnival, I felt as though I'd crossed some invisible threshold. Everything around me seemed to belong to another era. The clothes people wore, the music playing from scratchy speakers, even the designs of the rides, all hinted at a time long past. I know this sounds strange, but it seemed like everything was from the 1950s. I wandered through the crowds, taking in the sights and sounds. Each attraction seemed to hold a hint of magic. The carousel horses appeared to breathe and toss their manes when you weren't looking directly at them. The hall of mirrors showed reflections that moved just a fraction of a second after I did. At the ring toss, I won a small, carved wooden box. The old man running the booth winked as he handed it to me, saying, "For keeping secrets and dreams, my dear." I tucked it into my pocket, feeling as though I'd been given something precious. As I made my way through the carnival, I found my attention drawn to a young couple. There was something about them that felt familiar, though I couldn't quite place it. The young man's laughter rang out, full of joy and promise. "Come on, Anne, let's go," he called out excitedly, tugging the girl towards the Ferris wheel. I felt a strange flutter in my chest at the name. Anne. It was my grandmother's name. And now that I thought about it, she would have been about this girl's age in the 1950s. What a curious coincidence, I thought, watching them disappear into the crowd. The centerpiece of the carnival was a towering Ferris wheel, its lights casting a warm glow over the entire field. Impulsively, I decided to take a ride. As my seat rose into the air, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The higher I climbed, the more the misty air around me seemed to flicker and swirl. At the very top, I gasped. Spread out below me through the shimmering mist was a view of our town, but not quite as I knew it. The layout was familiar, yet different. My eyes scanned the skyline, searching for that tall, glass building that usually dominates the view. But no matter how I looked, I couldn't seem to find it. Before I could really make sense of what I was seeing, my seat began to descend, and the carnival below returned to view. As I stepped off the Ferris wheel, I felt slightly disoriented. Perhaps the misty air had triggered my imagination. I wandered through the attractions once more, but now everything seemed tinged with an air of unreality. The laughter sounded distant, the lights a little too bright. I found myself studying the faces around me, wondering if I might recognize someone else, someone who belonged to a time before my own. As the night wore on, I found myself reluctant to leave. There was a magic here, a joyous energy that I wanted to hold on to. But as the clock tower in the distance began to chime midnight, I knew it was time to go. With one last look at the twinkling lights and whirling rides, I made my way home, my mind spinning with the evening's experiences. This morning, I woke early, filled with a desire to return to Meadowbrook Field. But as I stood at the crest of the hill, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The field lay empty before me. No sign of the vibrant carnival that had filled it just hours before. The grass swayed gently in the morning breeze, undisturbed by carousel horses or Ferris wheel foundations. For a moment, I wondered if it had all been a vivid dream. But suddenly I felt the weight of the small wooden box in my pocket. I turned it over in my hands, and I noticed something carved on the bottom. A date that made my heart skip a beat. 1954. The very year my grandmother had mentioned in her stories about meeting my grandfather for the first time. Now, as I sit here in the quiet of my room, I find myself filled with questions. What was the carnival I experienced? Was it a glimpse into the past? A collective memory brought to life? Or something else entirely? I'm reminded of the stories my grandmother used to tell about her youth. About summer evenings spent at carnivals, much like the one I saw. I wonder now if there's more to those tales than I ever realized. Part of me wants to dismiss the entire thing. I'm supposed to be a scientist after all. But another part wants to keep this experience as a special secret, a magical moment frozen in time. I wish you could have been there with me, my dear friend, to have wandered those twinkling pathways together, to have shared in the wonder and mystery of it all. Perhaps one day we'll have our own adventure, stepping into another world together. Until then, I'll hold on to the memory of this enchanted night, a reminder that magic and mystery can find us in the most unexpected places. I'll keep the little wooden box on my nightstand, a tangible link to that extraordinary experience. Who knows what dreams it might inspire? Sweet dreams, my friend. Good night.